Hello, everyone. First of all, I would like to extend our thanks and gratitude for you being here. We know that this is not always something easy to discuss and to admit that you might need the help, but we're here for you and we're here to make sure that you have that support when needed. I am Jay. I'm the children's grief counselor here at Angela Hospice, and we are going to talk about how to help our littles during the holiday season. So, a quote that I firmly believe in is from David Kessler, who was an amazing grief expert, and is that children are often the forgotten grievers. And that's not to be malicious or in any ill intent. Sometimes a lot of us are wrapped up in our own grief that maybe our littles are just not seen. And we also don't know how to express things to them or not sure if they understand what's going on. But children are little people and they absolutely do have some of those same big feelings. So, just to get started, um, basic rule of thumb is to always just accept where you are at the time. So, give yourself and your family that permission to just feel whatever it is you're feeling. All of the tips that you've heard thus far definitely have that central theme of just taking where you are and making that the central focus. Um, Kids tend to experience a variety of emotions, sometimes just as much as we do. They can be happy one minute, they can be sad the next. They might be frustrated and not really sure how to express themselves. They might become withdrawn and want to stay away and not deal with anybody whatsoever. But all of those feelings are natural and you just have to kind of follow their lead. It's also important to make sure that you keep your loved one close by, keeping a memory of them during all of these celebrations. So, we're going to go into next some of the developmental responses to grief. Um, as we've discussed, everyone has a different way of responding to their grief, and the emotions and behaviors can come from a variety of different places, right? The relationships that we had with our loved ones, where we might be in our lives, if there's any other stressors or things that are going on, um, other support systems that we might or might not have. It just depends. And the same thing goes for our littles in our lives based on where they are cognitively and developmentally is how that they will respond to the grief that they are experiencing. They're just trying to figure out the world as it is, and to then couple it with something as complex as death can be a whole different story. So it's good to know what to witness or to expect per age range when you're dealing with a grieving child. So first we'll start with our 2 to 4 year olds. So for our smaller guys, they are not quite understanding the permanence of death. They don't really get that there is this event that can cease all life and there is no turning back from it. So you might get that fantastical thinking after 100 days or so, my person will come back. And that's something I've actually heard from one of my little clients. Um, and with this, it can be kind of hard. You might have to retell the story over and over again, which can be triggering for you as well. But this is where their minds are. They're not going to just grasp that concept at this age. And they're expressing themselves through play. And they might be taking their dolls and maybe they simulate a funeral, or they might whack something and tell it that it's dead and not really understand what that word means. So just kind of following those little cues, um, and making sure you're being as honest with them as you can, but in the right age appropriate language. Some of those responses: general anxiety, crying, clinginess, like the regressive behaviors, which is also on there. Temper tantrums, repetitive questions. Like I said, they're going to ask those questions over and over again. They're trying to get an understanding of what is going on. And all you can do is really just be a support to them, explain things in a way that makes sense for them. I prefer to not use euphemisms, so do say dead or died. Um, if you say asleep, what might happen? If they go to sleep, they might think that that might happen to them. Pass away is okay, but honestly, The clearer and more concise language that you can use, the better. And I know that's a lot, and it can be very, very emotionally triggering for an adult to try to explain that to a little one. But still, it's more helpful than not in the long run. So just completely be honest, follow where they are. Next, we have 5 to 8 years old. So at this point, they're kind of at that age of knowing, I like to say. They're starting to understand some of the more complexities with life. They're seeing how the world works with them in it, and their world, they're kind of the center of their own universe. Um, but they're starting to grasp that very complex but yet concrete thinking, and they still might exhibit some of that fantastical thinking as well. Um, with kids around this age, they pretty much have a basic understanding of what might be happening, but they don't know what to do with that. They don't really know where to put these feelings and how to express them. So once again, you're going to get those repetitive questions. You're going to maybe get some sleep disturbances. I've heard that quite a bit. You might get those regressive behaviors again, the bedwetting, wanting to sleep in the same room with you again. Um, a big thing they see is concerns with safety and abandonment. So it's almost like a who's next? Who's going to take care of me? Right? The kids at this age, they're very selfish, but that's just where they are developmentally. And so they're concerned. Who is going to take care of me next if something happens to you, if it's mom or dad or whomever? The behavior is definitely something that'll be different as well. It will be angry. It could be sometimes even violent. And that's just because they don't know how to verbalize what it is they're feeling. They might not even understand what they're feeling. Um, the reaction times of what they're going through as well. They could be happy 1 minute, something could instantly trigger them, and then they'll be sad. Then that trigger will move through, and then they're happy again. And that can be kind of confusing for us when we don't know what we're looking for. But that's how kids work. And if you notice, if they're playing, their attention span is not always that long either. So it can be that same, those same behaviors when they are feeling grief. And they'll have some physical complaints. They'll stomach aches, headaches. Something might not feel right. They just might feel very tense and don't know why. So all of these things are very helpful to know, and make sure you are mentioning to their teachers and things as well. 8 to 12, they might still be thinking concretely, but they're starting to understand the complexities of death and loss. They realize what dead means versus what alive means, and that there really isn't any coming back from that. Um, they're still kind of worried at this point as to what else could happen. Grief tends to come with those secondary and tertiary losses, different things of changing a household. Schools might change, the family unit, and tasks are going to be different now. So there's a lot of different worries about what's going to happen. Something outside of their control is just, it's here now. And so what can I control? Difficulty concentrating and focusing, that is a really big one. We have this issue as adults, right? We can't seem to get our lives under control or stay on one task, and that's definitely the same for kids. I'd also suggest definitely talking to their teachers and whomever is at their schools, admin, whatever, regarding the loss, just so they're aware. So if some of these behaviors come up and they're not necessarily well versed on them, they know what to look for. Um, Expressing big energy through behavior that is sometimes seen as acting out. And we kind of talked about this before with the aggression and the physical behavior. Once again, they're trying to figure out how to verbalize something that's hard to discuss as it is. So just kind of keep that in the back of your mind when you're trying to talk to your child, and maybe even trying to discipline some of those actions. The emotions are going to be across a wide spectrum: anger, guilt, sadness, happiness, sometimes numbness. All of those things are quite normal, just like they are for us. And withdrawing from social situations, they sometimes just don't want to be involved with anyone at all. They just would rather just be by themselves. Just give them that space and that time. If you're at an event, maybe you're at someone's house, see if there's another room that they can go to if they need to just kind of take a breather, or just stay there if they don't want to interact with family. and just kind of let them do their thing. Just make sure that they're being safe and that they're okay. 13 to 18. So now you have your teenagers. At this point, they absolutely understand death and loss and what all it entails. They're starting to figure out their place in the world, and they're relying on everyone else for their support as well. They're looking for someone to help walk this journey with them. And teenagers already have a variety of emotions and hormones and things going on and social issues that they're trying to figure out. Couple it with grief, and it's completely a different story and quite frankly, a lot more difficult. Once again, we're still looking at withdrawal. Teens do this anyway, right? They kind of want to stick to themselves. Everything is a little too lame for them now. But they're just trying to figure themselves out. But the same thing can happen with the grief. Increased risk taking. And I'm also going to couple that with the thoughts of suicide and self harm. They're kind of looking as to what else is really there for me to live for? If this is what life is going to be, if I'm going to have this much hurt, what is it that I'm protecting myself for? So really pay attention to certain things that they're saying. If their moods and behaviors change, if you notice maybe substance abuse, things like that, pay close attention to those things so you can try to make sure you can help them through it and help them find ways to cope safely and not through the method of self-medicating. Um, Still inability to concentrate, it's hard. There's a lot on your mind, and if you don't have those avenues and outlets to get it out, where else is it going to cause focus and take up attention in school, where they spend the majority of their day and of their time? The intense emotional reactions. They're still trying to learn how to express. They're still trying to learn how to verbalize. They're trying to learn to cope healthily. So all of these things are going to continue to happen. It happens to us. Sometimes we have these big blowups and we don't know why, or we have these triggers and we might be fine and we hear a song in the grocery store and next thing you know, we're in tears. Same difference. Just teaching them the tools and how to self-regulate. Um, Lot of attempts to take on caregiving roles. I've seen this across the board with many teens. They think they have to take over, especially if it was a parent that they lost. They have to become the parent. Let them know they don't have to be the parent. It's okay. You can still be a child. You can still be a teen, even though they're taking on a really adult situation. A lot of kids don't deal with grief like that, but they don't have to become the parent. So just keep that reassurance in mind. So, here's a few tips on how to work with your kids during the holidays. Once again, like we said, make sure you're conversing and answering questions, being as honest as possible, but keeping it age appropriate as you do so. And talk about them and their loved one who passed. And if they don't want to discuss it, follow their lead. They don't have to. And you don't have to either if it's too much. Make sure to play with them, have fun with them. If you're noticing that they want to have that time to kind of express themselves through play, do that. I think that that is really good for them, and they're kind of getting that support in a different way. Through creating music and art, that's one of the big things that we use here at Angela when we're working with our kids. You can do just about anything and make anything some sort of a memorial or grief related activity that they can kind of move through their grief with. And in doing all of this stuff, you're making new memories with them. You're kind of it's in a sense, a distraction in a way, but in a way, it's also coupling and working exactly with what you're doing, and that's a beautiful thing, and they're gonna hold on to that stuff. They're gonna remember that support when it matters the most. Make sure you are making a plan. Like we said last time, keeping a plan is helpful, even if you might not follow through with that plan the day of, because once again, you're listening to your body and what you need. Um, be free to be yourself. Give yourself permission to feel whatever it is that you need at the time. I am a big advocate for that. And it's the same thing with your kiddos. Just take the time that you need. There are no expectations except for taking care of yourself. Have them help you with preparation if you're creating food or dishes or anything, or even with decorating. Um, you can have them do a lot more. You'll be surprised they do want to help and be involved. And the same thing is with the decorating. If you don't feel like doing it, I'm sure that they would not mind putting up the tree and putting on bulbs. But that's once again, if it's something they want to do. So lastly, a few activities for families to do. It's an acronym SNOW. For S is for sharing memories, N is for nurturing the relationships, O is for open and honest communication, and W, walk and talk with your child, both physically, figuratively, and maybe not so much. But you guys are on this journey together, and just make sure we're not forgetting the children because tends to be what we do, not in malicious intent, but we are kind of wrapped up in our own grief, and sometimes the kids are forgotten. So just make sure you're keeping that in mind this holiday season. Some other activities to do are memory jars or memory stockings, memory ornaments, memory candles. You can make anything into a beautiful memory for your littles. And if there's anything that we can assist you with, please, please do know that you are not going through this journey alone. I'm going to turn it back over to Debbie to finish out the next workshop.